G'day everyone, welcome to Matt Hill Scar Models. This is video number 2 of the Monogram A1H Skyraider kit, kit number 5419, and this is the original 1980 copy, or 1980 issue of the kit, and I've got a bit of the construction, a few things done. I'll just run through them, tell you what I think, how things are going together. So far for an old kit, probably been an original issue kit, it's been fairly flash seam line free. I've been really happy with that, and touch wood, it will continue to be a nice kit to build. So what I've done is virtually some of the sub-assemblies, and I have done a few other little bits and pieces to it as well. Did a little bit of rescribing the panel lines, opened a few things up on the fuselage, etc. But this is the cockpit tub. Now the cockpit tub comes with all moulded together in one piece, except for the instrument panel and the control stick. Now the detail in there is some very nice, and I hope I can bring it up for you, raised detail on that tub, which will lend itself to some dry brushing or picking out the details very carefully. I've just base coated this in its base colours at the moment. It will receive a wash and a little bit of weathering and highlighting and etc, just to bring out some of the detail. Nothing over the top. The headrest was painted red. The Navy aircraft apparently had, according to the instructions, red headrest, so I've just put one coat of Tamiya flat red enamel on there. I haven't painted the buckles or anything on the harness, but so far that looks really good. I'm really happy with it, and I think it'll come up quite well. No injector marks or anything in that. The instrument panel itself, hope you can see it, it's got some amazing detail on it. It'll probably come up better once I pick a few things out. I'll just do some random red buttons and a couple of lights, and then I'll carefully dry brush it very lightly with some silver or some light grey, and then I'll put some clear micro gloss into the instruments to replicate the lenses, and I think it should come out alright. The control stick is good, very little clean up on that. Tiny little bit of a sink mark there in the front, but you're not going to see that once it goes into the rebate down there in the cockpit tub for that. So that was really good. There's some nice detail on the side walls of the fuselage, both sides. I haven't painted those in yet, but I think once they're painted black and a wash and a weather and a bit of dry brushing, and maybe pick out some of the few of the details with a little bit of colour, just to bring a little bit of pop into the fuselage, because you won't really see that much because it is a pretty tight fuselage fit. And you can see I've started doing the rescribing on the panel lines, trying to save as much as the other details as I can around it, and I think it's going to make a lot of difference to the kit. You don't have to rescribe it. I just decided to do it because the raised lines in this kit are very pronounced, and it's quite easy to use them as a guide with your favourite choice of rescriber. Everything looks like it'll fit together well, and as you see, once the fuselage is closed up, once I can get it there, you can't see much of that interior detail in there. By the time we get the tub in, etc, I don't think you'll be able to see a real lot, but I'm going to do it anyway. The way the construction of the wings and undercarriage, and I'll just bump the camera again, sorry guys, once I can get this stop going around, otherwise you all get airsick or seasick or something. These flaps and the interior part of the landing bay or the gear bays is actually, they're all one piece. Now I was going to replace these with wire, and I thought no, I'll try to keep the kit, it looks fine. I opened up the ports for the cannon ejection, cartridge ejection, so they'll be ready to receive a white and a wash, and there's some really nice detail which you'll probably see later on once the white is painted and we get a wash in it. And yeah, panel lines have been rescribed on that as well. I've taken the guns off the top half of the wings, the 20mm guns. I've carefully removed those. I will drill them out once they have been sanded, and I'll drill the ends of them out, and I'll get my pin vise and drill these and sit them back into there. Some nice detail in the bottom on the top half of the wings. The wheels look okay. The hubs are separate. Probably won't come out now. I'll push them in and they should flick out. But they will be nice white, and they've got a really nice enough detail in them to receive a wash, which will really make the detail pop. And there's some very nice detail on there for an old kit. These Monogram kits are really, really nice. The kit exhausts, they only had a little tiny seam line on them, which cleaned up quite well, just carefully running my hobby knife on them just to remove it. And then I centered the exhaust tubes, and then drilled them out carefully with a pin vise, and then put a little bit of Tamiya thin in there just to get rid of any of the swarf or any dust or anything, and they look really, really good. The exhaust systems are easy to drill out. It'd be a good one to try if you haven't attempted it before. Some of the big tanks here took a little bit of fit, but they've cleaned up quite well. I've lost a little bit of detail on them, but I will try to rescribe them best I can. I'm not very good at rescribing my own cylinders. I just can't do it. I might get away with what I did on the P40 and just try to replicate that in an illusion with a painting effect. The tail sections, don't worry about the black on there. I use a black Sharpie pen as a guide coat, so I will go along the panel line with a black Sharpie pen and then rescribe it. And because you're rescribing into fresh plastic, you'll see the grey line through the black, and that will tell you if you're going straight. There's a few little mess ups on mine which I do. I'm not the very best at rescribing, but if I do make a muck up of them, I usually use super glue or this Mr. Dissolve putty. This does rescribe again, okay. You just got to let it harden up for a few days, but it works quite well. And the super glue does also work very well. It's just if you let the super glue harden right up, I find it's very, very hard to sand, as you probably all well know. These are these little tanks of some sort, napalm fuel tanks, something. I'm not too sure. I think they're napalm. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. There is that little C gap. The actual pylon is moulded to one half of the tank, but when you sub-assemble it, there's a little bit of a gap underneath there. I don't mind that gap there because it sort of shows, there is a little tiny gap between the tank and the pylon. I might just scribe carefully in there just to bring a gap on the other side instead of that solid area there. These are going to be painted Dayglow orange or red. I'm not too sure. I have to look up some more information. If I've got it wrong, please let me know. I've got some Model Master Dayglow orange or something, High-Vis orange there, Cold War orange or something I was going to paint them in. The tailwheel section is okay. There's one tiny little outer injection mark just there, if you might be able to see. That'll sand out in about 5 seconds flat. Very nice bit of detail in there. Once that's painted white and has a wash in there, it will look spot on. Very good so far for an old kit. Now, what I've been reading, there's not a real lot on YouTube about the Skyraider kit. The Monogram one, everyone seems to be building the Tamiya kit or the Italeri kit. I think the Italeri kit might be the old Eschi kit anyway, but they're saying that this nose cowling is too small. Look, I'm just going to go with it. Some people have built it up using some styrene sheet and then make some new engine covers or exhaust covers or cooling flaps. I think I will just leave it as it is and build it like that. There's a lot of work going in on there. By the time I fill putty and everything, it's going to be, you know, a really big job. It's something I sort of don't think it needs. That's the engine all cleaned up. I think that'll come together well, even though it's one piece and only shows a single row of the engine. I think once you paint it, wash it, weather it, it should look alright, because it's not a real lot you're going to see in there, and what you are going to see I think is going to be reasonably authentic. It's got to look the part. The landing gear is really nice. The legs, they've got their brake line on them, a tiny, just see a little bit of a seam line there I've left out. I'll fix that now. Got heaps of detail. Bugger all clean up. A couple of injected pin marks on there which will come off easy. I've sanded them and to get rid of some of the the seam line that I couldn't get to. I've been working on it with Tamiya Extra Thin. Sorry, I've got my Tamiya Extra Thin in that, so I don't knock it over like I have done. As you might see by my cutting board later. And that will sort of melt if you keep working over it with the brush. It will not damage any other detail, but it will sort of melt down that seam line. So that worked well. The tail wheel's okay, even though the wheel is moulded into the actual landing part itself, or the strut. But look, it'll come up good. I reckon it'll be really good. The top half of the wings. Once upon a time, you can see where I've been running a bit of thin. Once upon a time, they must have been offered the wing fold. It's not in the instructions, so I don't know whether they originally wanted to have the wing fold where you could cut the wings and fold them or not in the fold position, but it would have been something different. So the top of the wings have been rescribed. Sorry about the black there and these marks, but this is just Tamiya Extra Thin, or a bit of micro sole weld it is. And once I clean these panel lines out with an old toothbrush and a bit of warm soapy water to get rid of any residue, marks or dust from the sanding, etc., I'll carefully put the Tamiya Extra Thin or the micro weld on a brush, and just that will make everything melt, anything in there, and make it all nice and smooth, get rid of any rough edges. And so hopefully we'll get on to doing a bit more work to that over the weekend. I've started work on some of the ordnance, the bombs. Now look, I don't know whether this is going to be correct or not. Before I do that, I just remember these are part of the landing gear bay, or the doors. There's 2 ejector pins in there which I don't know how I'm going to get out. I think I'll try my best without wrecking anything, but if I can't without wrecking it, I will leave them in there because I don't think you're going to see them. The bombs I have, you might think, oh shit, he's done a terrible job priming those. Well, what I actually did to simulate cast texture, I was being pretty lucky. I've seen some of this ordnance in real life at the Darwin Air Force Museum. They're like a cast texture. They look pretty rough. And so what I did, I got my old stibbling paintbrush and some Tamiya liquid surface primer on a brush, and I just did a stibbling thing just to, like they do with armour, bump the bloody camera, like they do with armour models, to replicate the rolled texture in the casting. So I've done that with those. I've got the pylons nearly done. You can see they're different colours because, as I explained in the first video, that was a second-hand kit missing some ordnance. But the pylons, I've had to cut one locating pin off because they weren't for this kit. But I think they will look alright. I am going to run 2 bigger bombs on here. I think they're 1,000 pound or 800. I think these. I'm not too sure. I'm not really good on my ordnance, and it's not spending enough time doing a bit of research, which I will do to find out exactly what they are. I'll grab my tweezers here. These are the kit supplied cannon, and as I said, I've carefully nipped them off with my Tamiya side cutters. clean them up. I'll drill the ends out, and I think they'll come out alright. There's no use to going spending another $14, whatever they are in Australia, for a set of turned aluminium barrels. I think with a little bit of effort you'll get a good result out of these. Just take your time, make sure you mark as close as you can to the centre here with a centre punch or a centre pin, which I use as an old airbrush needle. And I keep bumping the camera. So they'll come up okay. And then I've got some of the air intake over the chin intake, which I haven't removed yet, but there's no injected pin marks on that. There is a big number 12 in there for the part number, but that'll come off easy enough. That's if you even get to see it. So far for an old kit, this has been really good. I'm really having fun with it, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like something that I've seen in little Monogram books for years and years, and now I'm finally getting to build one. So if you do see one of these floating around second hand somewhere, $10 or $12, what they're worth, do yourself a favour and buy one. It's a really nice kit, and like with a little bit of effort, it'll come up well. Well, I hope it will anyway, because otherwise I'll make a fool of myself on the video. But until next time, guys, I'll call it quits. Be safe, model hard. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to everyone for the comments so far. Both videos that I've done, I'm really enjoying these old Monogram kits, and I hope it inspires you to get one out of your stash. No need to go and spend a fortune on Tamiya one, and enjoy it and build it. So be safe, model hard. Remember, a little bit of effort, you can get a good result out of an old model kit. Cheers.